Hello everybody and welcome to lesson 23.2 in the Python tutorial series. We're not going to have much of an introduction to this video as this is going to be part 2 of the introduction to lists. That video ran just a little bit long, so we split it into 2 parts. If you're watching this and you haven't seen part 1, you might want to go back and watch that because when this video starts there'll be some code on the screen and we'll have the assumption that you've done everything in lesson 23.1 already. So if you haven't seen lesson 23.1, go back and watch that and you'll understand what's on the screen. Otherwise, let's go ahead and continue with lesson 23.2, the second part of the introduction to lists. So let's go ahead and create a new list variable, and I'm going to call this subjects. And staying with my school theme here, I'm going to have a list of some classes. So we're going to have a biology class, we're going to have computer science, we're going to have math, and we're going to have history. You'll notice that each of these strings has its own delimiter on it, and they're separated by a comma. So subjects is now a list variable equal to biology, computer science, math, and history. The length of subjects is 4. And I can access individual subjects using index notation. So if I want math, I can go to index location number 2, subjects at index location 1. If I want the last item in the list, I can do subjects at index location -1, which will return history. So now I've got this list of subjects that we can work with. All of a sudden, min and max will work again because I'm not mixing different values. So if I say, not mix, min of subjects, I'm going to get biology because that's what comes first alphabetically. And if I say max of subjects, I'm going to get math because that's what comes last alphabetically. But still, remember that sum of subjects is going to give me an error because I can't add strings together. But min and max will work if your list variable contains nothing but strings. If I wanted to print a simple message, I could say print, I am taking a course in %s, and so that should look familiar. That's a simple print statement right there. And if I did %subjects, see, the message I get is a bit weird. I'm taking a course in biology, computer science, math, and history. It prints the entire list. However, if I were to print something like I am taking a course in %s and then access subjects at index location 1, this message would now print out correctly. That's because when I access subjects at index location 1, I'm just getting the string of computer science, and it makes my sentence look okay. If I don't use that index notation, the entire list will print out. I can then easily switch what I'm taking by writing, I am taking a course in %s, and now we'll call it subjects 3. So I've got my index subject with an index notation there. And now all of a sudden I'm taking a course in history. So I can access those individual elements of my list and put them together to kind of create sentences. Now these index notations, or these index locations, are simply integers. Let's head over to our programming window and see if we can't do something a little bit more interesting than what we've been doing in the Python shell. The first thing we're going to do in our program is import random, because I want some randomization. I'm then going to initialize a variable, and we'll do subjects again. In fact, I'm going to take it right from here. So I'm going to copy and paste this variable here. So I've got subjects, biology, computer science, math, and history. I'm now going to generate a random number. So let's call it index is going to be equal to a random number, a random integer, between 0 and 0, 1, 2, 3. So I'm going to get a random number between 0 and 3. I'm then going to print, I am taking a course in %s, And now instead of feeding my program a fixed index location, I'm going to have it be its subjects at the index that I randomly generated. So since I'm only generating a number between 0 and 3, it has to be within this range right here. And so if I run this program now, and let's go ahead and save this as lesson 23.1.py. Thank you for the suggestion on that, by the way. I think it does make a lot more sense to name each individual lesson something different rather than just overwrite it every time so you can't get back to your older programs. We're going to call this lesson 23.1.py. See, the first time I run it, I'm taking a course in biology. The next time it's computer science. The next time it's biology again. So every time I run this, I seem to be getting biology, but in reality, it's picking a random course out of here because I'm getting a random number each time. We're not quite done yet, though. I had to clear my screen over here. I had a little bit of a computer hiccup, so we're clear over here. But right now, this works if I have exactly 4 items in my list. But if I go in later and say, a student might be taking something else. Let's say they also might be taking an English class. So I add a new element to this list. I also need to remember to change my random number here, or English will never be selected. I'm only getting a number between 0 and 3, so I'm getting 0, 1, 2, and 3. There's never a chance that I'm going to generate English based on this random number. So one thing I could do is simply go in here and remember to change that to 4. If I add something else, remember to change it to 5. If I take something out, remember to subtract 1. But we can use the len command, or the len function, to our advantage here to make sure that our index is always within the realm of our subject's variable. So instead of our end number being fixed, I'm going to set the end of the index to be the length of subjects. And this is a common mistake many people make. You leave this as length of subjects. So let's run this program, and it will probably seem like it's working an awful lot. So we're taking a course in history, but here it is on the second run, I'm getting an index out of range error. But if I run it again, I'm getting computer science, English, math, history. So it looks like it's working most of the time, and now I need to figure out, why did I get that one error? Well, the reason is the length of subjects is 5. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So I'm getting a random number between 0 and 5, but the index locations are 0, 1, 2, 3, and 4. Essentially, if this random number ever generates a 5, like it could, I'm going to get an index out of range error because there is no index 5 in subjects. This length of subjects doesn't start counting from 0, it starts counting from 1. So when you use this technique, you need to make sure that you're subtracting 1 from the length of your subjects. This will give you a random number between 0 and 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 minus 1, or between 0 and 4. Now, this list is completely independent of our random index generator, or in other words, this index generator will always generate an index that can be any of our subjects. So if I then later add another subject, so let's see, what else do students sometimes take? Let's see if they take it like a health class here in the middle. I now have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 different options, and I'm generating a number between 0 and 5, and so now I can create a random class, and I'm never going to get that index out of range error because I'm not generating one that's too high. So this is a really common technique to see when you want to randomly pull an object out of a list. So you can put the numbers in, but it's a good habit to get used to using the length of a list to help drive this process. So that seems like an awful lot to cover in one lesson. And I certainly think it is. We're not done with lists yet. We're going to look at some list methods, and we're going to write a simple game using lists in lesson 23.2 and 23.3. So we're going to spend more time with lists. Now, chances are, if you're a new programmer watching this, lists aren't going to be make complete sense to you right away. I mean, it might be pretty simple, but remembering all these commands and all the stuff we talked about in this lesson might be a little bit of a challenge. So don't feel bad if you have to watch it several times. It will eventually come to you, and it's not super complicated, but it's very powerful. With that being said, let's make sure that everyone has a firm grasp on the basics of the list data type, and take a look at the lesson 23.1 challenge program. So as we get ready for the lesson 23.1 challenge program, I have to be honest, this is among one of my least favorite of the challenge programs. I wanted to think of something that would get you just in the habit of using list variables and randomly pulling something out of the list variable. But I noticed while I was programming this that we're missing two key pieces of list variable techniques. And we're not going to be covering those to the next lesson, so it was a little bit difficult to come up with a list program that I thought was good practice without needing some of those extra skills. So this is what I came up with. It's a random inventory generator, and I have a list of 7 possible inventory items, and the idea behind this would be maybe a survival game where the player starts off with 3 random items and has to build from there. So in this first run through, you can see the player starts with a sword, fishing nets, and fishing pole, and then an appropriate message tells the player what he can do with each of these items. So there's a bug right there. Having a sword will help you defend yourself from monsters, the fishing pole will help you find food in the wild, and the fishing nets will help you catch food while scouting the area. If I run this again, I get a new inventory for my player. So he's got fishing nets, flint and steel, and an axe this time. And with flint and steel, you can start fires. With fishing nets, you can catch food. And with an axe, you can chop down trees. And I can continually run this and get new items with new descriptions. Now, one thing that you'll note that I'm not going to really require in this challenge program is it would be perfectly acceptable right now to have it randomly generate 2 of the same items. So theoretically, if your user ended up with 3 swords, that would be perfectly fine right now, because there's really easy ways to prevent that from happening. We just haven't gone over them yet. So as you write this program right here, just write a simple random inventory generator. Just to give it a little bit of flair, I did some if checks to see if the inventory spots contain certain items, and then I printed an appropriate message. But again, in lesson 23.2 or 23.3, we're going to be going over an append function and list mutability and some topics that we haven't covered yet that would make this program a little bit more simple. So in short, write a random inventory generation program just to make sure that you're able to use lists. But no, there's definitely easier ways to do what you're doing, and we'll cover those real shortly in these future lessons. So hopefully you got something out of the list data type lesson 23.1. I know it covered a lot of different stuff, but we'll keep practicing this, and we definitely aren't going to let lists go away. As always, if you have any questions about this or any other video that you've seen on the series, you can just go ahead and leave those in the comments, and I will be happy to help you out so that you have working programs and really understand what it is we're doing. So thank you so much for watching the Python tutorial series, and have a great day.